Hey all, and welcome back to Fuzzy Dutchy Gaming and a new video on the channel looking at really trying to perfect a Alk and Go map strategy that works for me. I've been kind of looking at different videos that people have put out for currency making strategies, and the one that caught my eye the most, which is in the description below, was MBXtreme's sort of boss rushing strategy. It's not boss rushing per se, but it's a similar type of tree where it concentrates on mapping as quickly as possible, killing the bosses, taking all of the bonuses that you can get to maps dropping from bosses, such as, synthesis maps, conquer maps, guardian maps, stuff like that. And the idea is that you basically map as quickly as possible, cramming as much stuff into the map that isn't going to slow you down, so that you can maybe get through maps in 1.5 to 2 minutes. Now, his build is super optimized. He's got like a headhunter. He spent God knows how many, mirrors on the build. Mine's just a build that I've thrown together for, I would say, about 40 divines. It's not really optimized for speed clearing, but it should be able to do the maps in around 2 minutes once I get used to the play style and stuff like that. So what I wanted to talk about was where I went in terms of planning out the original tree, because this is not what it looked like originally. Originally, what I wanted to do, because Harvest has got so much juice, my idea was to try and combine the two. So yes, Harvest will slow my maps down, but if I go Stream of Consciousness, take all of the Harvest nodes, block everything else, obviously Harvest wouldn't be blocked, but everything else would be, then I should be seeing Harvest really regularly, like one in every 2 or 3 maps. So I've got 2 maps where I can blast, get the map done in like 1.5 to 2 minutes. Then I've got the Harvest map that's probably going to add realistically a minute onto the map to get all the patches cleared, collect all the stuff that drops. And then the idea was to see how that fared and then take Harvest out, just literally cram everything that can be done instantly into the map so that I know everyone can be done in 2 minutes, and see what the difference is in currency, because Harvest currency is worth a lot of money. But is it worth spending the extra time in the maps when the quicker you're clearing maps, the more often you're getting your incandescent invitation to drop, the more guardian maps you're going to be dropping, the more synthesis maps you're going to be dropping, because you're going to be clearing maps a lot quicker. So I've done runs of 28 of each. So it's no massive sample size, but I'm not a player that plays, 8 to 10 hours every day. It would take me weeks to do proper sample sizes, and by then I'm probably bored of both strategies. So I've really just done a simple 28 maps with Harvest, 28 maps without. Chuck it all into individual tabs and see what we come up with, and then compare the loot against the time it took to see if there's an optimal way to run it. So the only thing that changed in terms of setting up this strategy was I've taken Eldritch Gaze for the non-Harvest tree. I didn't want it in for Harvest, because if we get Harvest at the end and I've got loads of downsides, I might end up dying, and then it kind of wastes time and stuff like that. I did try taking Wrath of the Cosmos as well, but it just felt bad. But if you get 4 or 5 stacks, you sometimes die without even know what's killed you. You've then got to get back to the map. You might then die again, and it just wastes a lot of time. And I don't think it's actually profitable unless you've got a character that can tank hits at like 5 or 6 stacks. So I've just gone with Eldritch Gaze because it doesn't really do much. It just adds to the downsides, but the downsides are nothing mega as long as you don't accidentally click one of the player buff options. So the original Harvest tree is going to be in the video description along with the current tree that I've got. So what I thought I'd do is just talk through what I did for each one and then what comparisons I made to decide which strategy worked best for me. So a tool which I'm using, which I think helps massively, is this tool here, and it's called Map Watch. It just basically monitors the time that you're in maps, in town, and gives you an idea of how long your farming session took. So without Harvest in, I did 28 maps in just over 1 hour and 3 minutes. This would have been around an hour. I forgot to prep all of the maps, so I had to do some prepping in the middle of the session. I also had a couple of Beyond bosses turn up, which is not kind of normal. You're not normally going to get 2 in 28 maps when you're just out and going. So that took, a minute to get down. And then at the start, I wasn't actually running a toll. As you can see down here, I was running like just whatever maps I had. Park wasn't very efficient. As you can see, Park definitely took me longer than Atoll. Like I was 2 minutes for 2:16, 2:36. Whereas a lot of the Atoll maps, I'm under 2 minutes. The map that turns up at a minute here was because I accidentally clicked Meteors. So I basically cleared half the map, killed the boss, killed a Beyond boss, and then got out because I didn't want to get killed by a meteor. But this is showing that for my play session, we'll call it an hour because I can definitely get below that if I'm just running a toll. I can do 28 maps. So that returns both the invitations and then whatever else drops from the map bosses. So let's go into the loot for this particular strategy. And it was just under 5 divines. I'm going to keep the maps there because even the ones that don't sell, you can horizon into something like waste pool and sell them. The reason I'm keeping them in for both, I don't care about the exact profit. I care like what one's better. So if I keep it consistent, even if the profit is not quite right, it's wrong in both areas and it's wrong in the same degree for both. So I'm happy with that as a test. I'm going to pull this divine out because it's obviously, I think I found a God Touched rare in an essence monster. It dropped to divine. So I'm not going to include that because I didn't have a divine drop in the other. So we're going to call it just under 4 divines for this hour session. And I think that's reasonable. It's pretty decent amount as well, considering these are both no investment strategies. They're just alch the maps, make sure you can run them and run them. So 4 divines, we'll call that for an hour. So we'll go and we'll have a look at the harvest one. So I exported my map watch across into just a really crude Google sheet. So we'll just make it so that I can actually see it. To show kind of how long it took. And as you can see, this one was 50% longer. So to do the 28 maps, I ran June. Not for any particular reason, I just had loads of them from favorite in it. It's quite a nice map. You can boss rush it as well. And I had harvest turn up a lot. And when it was turning up, it was sort of 3.5 to 4 minute maps. So overall, the 28 maps took me, 50% longer. So it was just over an hour and a half. I've still kept the loot. So we will go and have a look at the loot here. And the loot for harvest was 5.7 divines. So stacking them up, they're pretty much about the same just on this small sample size. And it really boils down to how I feel about each mapping scenario. In all honesty, I think I preferred just blasting in under 2 minutes. The harvest is fine. I don't dislike doing harvest. And I think in a toll, it might work fine because normally the harvest turns up in that middle section at the beginning or one of the big sections at the top. It's always in the same place. So it's easy to find and easy to know if you've got a harvest. Also for the harvest test, I ran strong boxes over essences just to see what sort of loot I would get out of essences because strong boxes were not brilliant. I think I had a few operative ones, but it dropped rusted scabs for the most part that are fairly worthless. But I know essences, some of them are still worth some money. So what I need to do next is crunch the numbers between scarabs against essences and what turned out better. And I think it's going to be essences. So overall, I think I would go with the guaranteed 4 divines an hour or roughly what it is. You're never going to guarantee that exact income. But I think that's what I would go with because harvest, as you can see, is a massive part of this income. When you're mapping a bit slower, you need to rely on your harvest. If I got unlucky and it turned out that I only got harvest in 30% of my maps instead of the probably 60% or more that I got previously, that's going to massively affect the income, would drive this figure down quite a lot, then makes it less profitable than the other strategy. But I think it would be whatever I enjoyed doing the most, I would do. And that was the whole point of trying to put a strategy together is I want something that I enjoy doing. And I really enjoyed doing both. And I would comfortably and happily come home from work, log on, farm these for 2 hours because there's literally no setup. You get all your maps in a tab, you alch them all, you have a quick check to make sure you can run them all, and then you run all of the maps, and that's it. It's really straightforward. The stuff that drops is going to be easy to sell because it's going to be invitations, boss maps, currency, and then Eldritch currency. That's pretty much the bulk of what you drop in, and it's nice and easy and quick to sell. And as you can see, we've got loads of maps drop. Not a ton of our favorite maps, which is a toll, but with this boss rushing strategy, there's lots of maps that you could do it on. So Defile Cathedral is an option. That's a really nice, just circular map with a boss on it. A toll is an option. You got things like Pen is not too bad. It's a straight line. It's a bit long, but it's not too bad. Primordial Pool again. You could do it on. There's tons of maps that this strategy works on because we're not needing a certain tile set to fit in certain league mechanics. So basically anything that's fairly linear and has got a boss that's not got any phases and is easy and quick to kill, you can do this on. If I'm going to perfect this strategy even more, if we look at a toll here, I probably need to set another favorite up because I've got them all as a toll at the moment. So what else is not too bad to run? And actually, You could go Defile Cathedral or Crimson Township also really like. Tiny bit of a delay with the boss coming out. So we will set Defile Cathedral as our other favorite. And this is just me optimizing the strategy further. And it's not going to be, oh, this is my strategy now, I'm going to run it. Next 28 maps are run, I might look at it again. Is there ways I can optimize it even more? So what I'll do is do a quick map showcase, but I'll also show you quickly how I check these maps. We can take these maps because they've already got some sort of thing on them. I would obviously chisel out any map that I'm going to do. And then if we stick them in here, I've then gone over here to POE.re, which is basically just a regex generator. All this does is you can go to maps and it will give you every mod on a map and you can select the ones that you don't want. So I don't want Reflect, I don't want Can't Leech, I don't want Max Res in case I die, and I don't want Life as Extra ES. It adds those modifiers in when you click them. You click copy, you go back into your game, put that down there. Anything that doesn't highlight has got it on. So you can either chaos it. I've got tons of these, so I'm going to do that instead. Okay, so there we go. So now I've got 5 maps that I'm happy to run. I would obviously do it with 28 maps. So I'll just show you a showcase of 2 maps just to show you kind of the flow that you go into. But what I'll normally do is take 2 to 4 maps, keep them in my inventory. You stick one in, and then I will show you Map Watch here as well. We'll do like a multitasking thing. So here's Map Watch. I go to timer, and my map is ticking away with a toll. So I'll move that, and then we'll come back to it later. And that timer will keep going until I either go into another map or I go into another zone that isn't like a hideout. Because it assumes that if you're going to like a town or to buy something, that you're still mapping because you might be buying something or liquidating something. It won't stop that timer until you go into either a campaign zone that's got enemies in it or you go into another map. So the way I tend to finish the sessions is I'll go into like a campaign zone because then that's going to stop the timer and round off the session. So with the toll, you always head around to the right, and the boss will either be up here or up here. And it just means that although you can't boss rush, you can get half of the map without boss totems popping up, which is nice. So there we go. We've got our invitation. And then you just go around and finish the map. Obviously, this is really suited for a clear speed build. There is no point doing this sort of Alchemist strategy if you've got like a bosser, because you're not going to be able to clear the maps quick enough to be able to make decent profit. And there we go. Essence is nice and quick to kill. And then it's up to you how you clear these. Some layouts are slightly more awkward than others, but essentially they just loop around, and you'll always end up back at the start. And then if you've got like a little bit you need to clear off at the start, you can do. Not had many altars in this, so we're not going to have much loot in this map. And it is the case. Sometimes you won't get a lot. Sometimes you might get 2 Conqueror maps dropped from a boss. Sometimes you might get lots of Eldritch currency, or you might get 2 Essences of Horror. There's loads of things that can drop in maps that make you money. And obviously, we're doing the maps really quickly. So if we pull Map Watch back in, we're just at about 2 minutes and we're about to stick our next map in. So again, we go back to Map Watch. And as soon as we jump in a map, that's going to reset to 0 because we're in our next map. And that will track everything. So again, we've got Alba. I'm not bothered about Alba. It's not going to be worth the time to go and actually do that. So we'll just check out this essence. That is an absolute garbage essence. So we won't be doing that either. So and again, we're going to rush around to the right because that's going to lead me to the boss guaranteed. The other way probably will. But this way, at least, I cover this section of the map. I know I'm going to get to the boss and kill it with at least half the map left to spare. And as I say, the boss on this one, I think, is as long as going to be straight ahead. And then it's a nice, quick and easy boss for any build because you can just stand out the way. I've obviously got some sort of poison on this map. That hurt. And then you'll just go and finish the map. Now, this may look like I don't get how you're making money. You've not had anything drop. But every time a boss map drops, on average, is probably 25 chaos. You've obviously got altars. And because we're going around and we're killing the boss fairly early, As soon as you get something like Scarabs or Eldritch Currency, or actually map currency is really good because you end up with a ton of Awakened Sextants, which are about 3.5 chaos each at the minute. So just because you don't have anything for a couple of maps, you then might get a map where you just start dropping loads of Eldritch Currency, or you drop loads of mapping supplies, which it looks like we've hit a mapping one at the moment because we're getting tons of Horizons and Unmakings, which in bulk will still sell. And then we'll go back past that Terrible Essence. Finish the map. And then what we'll talk about is... yeah, last thing we'll talk about is why I've picked this particular strategy. So that's that done. So all I'm going to do... there may be another way to stop the timer, but I'm not 100% sure. So I'm just going to go into a campaign zone to tell this thing to be quiet. So you just go in. Doesn't really matter where you go. We'll go Western Forest. And then I will come back into my hideout. And then that's now stopped it. So you can see your history here in map watch. So those two maps took me 2 minutes 12 and 2 minutes 10. So I'm still need a bit of work on my speed to get this down, because I think I can easily get to below 2 minutes a map with town time. And this kind of gives you a good indication of how you're getting on. And then as I say, all I would do is I'm not going to dump it because it's going to ruin the currency that I had. But let's assume this is my dump tab. I make sure I don't have affinities on. I'm literally just stashing everything in here that I get. And then Excellence next is going to tell me how much that's worth when I go into the profile. I'm not bothered about selling anything at all until I end up with like dump tabs full of stuff, everything in bulk. Then I'm going to maybe have an hour session selling everything. Easily make, probably if I do it maybe once a week. You know, I don't need to do it regularly because I don't need the money for mapping supplies, which is why I love this strategy. So I can just have one selling session a week where I might want to watch Cobra Kai on Netflix or something. I can then just sell all my stuff in the time I've watched a couple of episodes, and then it makes you feel a lot better about your strategy when you're looking at 20, 30, 40 actual divine orbs in your stash instead of tons and tons of random stuff that you haven't sold. And then the last thing to talk about is a mapping strategy on its own doesn't really mean anything because you need a character that matches that strategy. And that's the thing where I think a lot of people don't quite understand the importance is if I had a slower minion build, for example, or I had a slow two-hander build where I can go and clear massive groups, but I'm quite slow in my movement speed and I might take twice as long to clear the map, but I can do an absolute ton of damage. This strategy is not right for that build because that build could be actually doing the boss maps and profiting from them. This build works for my character because I've built it specifically not to boss. I just want it to map. And it's still far, far, far from the finished product in terms of efficiency. I don't have a form of frenzy charges because I don't have a spare jewel slot for blood rage and I still haven't crafted my quiver. I'm running 2 defensive roars that I don't need to. I could run haste instead. I don't have an inspired learning or a headhunter. There's tons of things that I can add to this build to get it easily doing maps in sort of 1 minute 45. Because where this build falls down is actually, even though it's quick, is the pure movement speed between packs. So yes, I can use a Quicksilver Flask. Yes, I've got Onslaught, but I need to look at these nodes here are going to give me increased Onslaught effect, which gives me more movement speed. Let's say I could drop the Brutal Restraint, get Onslaught on Kill on Boots, get an Inspired Learning in here, get some Frenzy charges going, and then take some Frenzy charge nodes. There is a lot I can do with this build to optimize it, and that's going to be the next step of this strategy. So I've got my Alkengo strategy. It's roughly 2 minutes a map, but I know if I'm making Fortified Divines an hour, and I can speed up my maps by 25%, that's an extra divine an hour I'm making. So the sooner I make these changes, the sooner I'm going to be rolling in more divine orbs. But that's it for this strategy. I've linked MBXtreme's video below because he runs a very similar strategy, and it's where I got really the idea from to do. I know it's not a new idea, it's just not something that really came to me when I was thinking about what to run. So the next video is probably going to be a few days away, but it's going to be me optimizing this build to fit this strategy. So I've got my strategy, it works, I enjoy it, but my build's not quite in the place where it can do it really, really efficiently. So that's what I need to look at next. But that's it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. Take care and see you in the next one.